This conference will now be recorded.
Is the Lord Oak still sitting there?
Good to see you, Hannah. Doing good. I'd like to call the Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Let's start with the pledge and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda. Anybody have anything we need to add to the agenda this evening? We do have a closed session.
Staff has no amendments, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody up here? What would you like to do?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. As always, general public comment. General public comment. How many people are watching us, Livingston? Tracy's internet must be shaky. All right, we're going to do public comment later again. Constitutional officers, county departments, committees, and organizations. Do we have a microphone? Can we start with, I guess we'll start with Annette.
Bruce, can you pass the microphone along to you?
Thank you.
Know that this is the part too, when the chairman gets around, that includes the town as well.
How are y'all?
Very well. How's the animal shelter, Annette?
It is going great, running smoothly. So in January, I submitted the state report for the shelter. We had an adoption event at PetSmart on February the 15th. I was asked if we could help Culpeper with some animals. They were going through some issues with adoptions. So I did go pull some dogs and cats. I had a very generous lady named Linda Barnes step up, and she sponsored 3 dogs, which she paid for their complete medical. Out of everything I pulled, I only have 1 dog left at the shelter for adoption. My February numbers are we took in 13 strays, 12 owner surrenders, we had 5 reclaims, 15 adoptions, and 9 transferred to rescue. At the moment, I have 5 dogs and 10 cats. 4 of those are adopted. They're just waiting to go home. They had surgery today.
Pretty good. Do we have any questions for Annette? Thank you, Annette.
Thank you.
All right, Tilly. How's the rigorous Department of HR?
Busy.
Yeah, that's
as
the way to
always.
be. Huh?
No real report. Just been helping with interviews for the animal shelter and just staying on top of things as they change. And that's about it.
Good. Anybody have anything for Tilly? Thank you, Tilly. Miss Murray. Welcome.
Hi. No real report, just that we're working on collections and working toward eventual first half billing. But of course, we have a lot going on yet that has to be worked out. Working with budget, we'll see you again on Thursday evening for that, for the revenue portion. And I think that's about it, except a personal note. I wanted to thank you all for your kindness when my brother passed away. Thank you very much.
Miss Murray. Do we have any questions for Miss Murray? Commish?
Good afternoon. Wrapping up the general reassessment, Wingate is closing, or getting all the change and no change notices sent out to those who made the appeal to the assessors. They saw 260 appeals, which was low. I mean, they were anticipating 300 to 500 appeals. So they, I know it's a lot of chatter on people being dissatisfied, but I think that's that 6-year swing talking mostly. I think people, when they took time to look at the market and evaluate if their property wasn't in line with the market, that's my assumption. Maybe the word didn't get out, and they'll show up to the Board of Equalization appeals. I'm not sure, but again, the assessor appeals was, not necessarily low, but under what they anticipated.
How many different groups did you go talk to, Brian?
Personally, I went to several different farmers groups. I didn't hear from many others, and maybe I should have been a little bit more proactive, is maybe getting out and some Lions clubs or other community organizations. But
I don't know. I thought it was pretty good outreach that you were going out and explaining to people and making sure everybody does understand.
Yeah, we try. So again, they've still got a week or two before they actually hand the book over to me. Of course, we're juggling some budget things, but we'll get some numbers that are, shaved down pretty well. There might be some fine tuning there, but we'll have those for y'all for the budget meetings. So, other than that,
Questions for Brian? Thank you, Brian. Jamie Wilkes.
Well, good afternoon. Start with zoning. The planning department zoning is staying busy with PDRC, Planning Commission, comp plan, and various BZA cases. In your packets, an overview of last month's activities from Alan. Erosion sediment control, you get your monthly DEQ report that's submitted in the packet. And it appears we should be starting Hoover Ridge fairly soon, which is a good thing. Building-wise, of course, our monthly permit report's attached. This was the big one. We didn't meet last month because of all the various weather events, but the deadline for the old code expired. And now all new permits, inspections, everything's going to be under the 2021 USB. The 18's timed out. And of course, they've started the next cycle, so another one's coming. But that's every 3 years, so there it is. This week, the 19th, no, well, it's not this week, it's 19th, no, it's the 9th through the 15th, I got a typo in there. It's Flood Awareness Week, DCR, and all the various flood agencies throughout Virginia are promoting flood awareness as a community outreach thing, and we got a link on our website. Coming up in May is, again, is Building Safety Month, and we're promoting that as well. We have links on the website to these various outreach programs, Flood Awareness Week and Building Safety Month. And then other than that, we're just staying busy with inspections, issuing permits, all that good things. Any questions you might have?
Anybody? Thank you very much, Chairman. Greg?
All right, good evening. Calls for service are steady. We've had 49 handled in person, 72 handled by phone, with 18 emergency after-hour calls. Working on trying to update the livestock book. That way we know who to call, have any cows or anything out. Received my rabies titer results from the health department. They confirmed still up to date on that, so we're good for another 2 years. And the next thing, the Virginia State Police, this DART team, I've been in contact with the sheriff and Clarissa regarding this. As of right now, it isn't mandated. I look forward to kind of lean that way towards maybe in the near future. They're asking every locality to try to report any animal cruelty cases at the end of the year. So I'll be attending training tomorrow at the Harrisonburg Regional Lab just to try to get trained on how to enter that and have any questions on that, on their database. Then next we did take a training, Justice Clearinghouse hosted a training on holding animals and remains as evidence. That's all I have.
All right, question for Greg. Thank you, Dave. Noah, how's EMS doing? You need a
Good.
new facility.
Yes,
There you go.
I'll start there and just want to say thank y'all for Board of Supervisors, to administration. Mr. Weekly helped us move, and facilities for helping us getting settled, and the team's very appreciative. So thank you for that. February was busy, 180 calls. We did one response to green, one to orange, trying to help out where we can. Pretty significant reduction in NUA, which I was happy to see. At the time of this report, we were fully staffed. We are down one lieutenant. I'm going through an internal promotional process and hope to have news in the next couple of weeks. And Tiffany's been very busy with community paramedicine. She had 8 visits, 16 open cases with 10 pending referrals. Happy to answer any questions. We're just busy.
Who were we trying to pair up last week, Tiffany with paramedicine? Was it John Reed that we were trying to tie the two together?
I don't think it was, I think it was Agent Together.
Was it
What
Agent? Oh,
and
there, that's
she
the
was
one.
aware,
That is
Ms.
the
Phipps
one.
was aware, and she's actively participating with them.
Anybody else have anything for Noah? Please.
Noah, is the facility 100% complete now, or are they still doing, odd end things?
They're doing some odds and ends, but it's fully functional, and yep.
We, Supervisor Jewett, we can talk now, or we can call on Brian or myself if you want there at the end. We can give you an update. But essentially, substantial completion was given at the end of February, and then there are some punch list items. So we'll be meeting with the architect and engineer, I believe, this Thursday to go over the remaining of that. So we have a retainage. We're not final, but we have reached substantial completion. So there are some punch out items that we'll have to take care of. Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Noah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Warren, how's finance?
Finance is busy. Just,
Really?
Yeah. It's the time of year. 'Tis the season. Budgets, we're working through with all the departments. Just got a lot of the comp board items done today, and so we're wrapping up, going through all the budgets to make sure anything comp board related is updated and getting the capital finalized. And then we have our FY24 audit report tonight. Mr. Foley's going to present on that. And then the last thing for me is EMS, we've been doing an implementation on time and attendance for them to start using our Tyler time and attendance time clock system, so we don't have to pay an extra fee for a lad tech, I think is who they're with now. So the implementation's been going well. We feel like we're at a point now where we're gonna run parallel between the two systems for a couple payrolls, and then the training will occur probably April timeframe, and hopefully we can cut off a lad tech sometime in May or June, probably June, by the end of the fiscal year, and then have one less expense there. We won't have a separate bill to pay for their online timekeeping system. So that was an implementation we needed to do.
So we won't see that in the budget.
Yeah, we won't have to pay that bill next year.
So, hey, let me ask you something, Jennifer. The comp board stuff, what's the likelihood that that changes over the next few weeks with any decisions in Richmond?
You know, we got a memo from Robin, I can't remember her last name, DeSocio. And, you know, April 15th, anything could change, but they, you know, the numbers are pretty solid, I
Okay.
think. But
Thank you.
anything could change.
Go ahead, please.
Just a quick question. So if we're going to combine those two payroll systems, do we have to pay extra for the users on your system, or is that included?
No, it's so with the Tyler that we pay, we self-host our own Tyler internally. We're not SaaS solution where we pay by user.
Okay.
So it's all on our servers, and we're already paying for time and attendance, so it's not going to increase our costs.
Great. Thanks.
Anybody else? Ms. Warren, thank you. Livingston.
Hello, everyone. I brought my wrong book, so I got to do this from memory.
Good.
We, I believe, have closed about 150 tickets since the beginning of the year, and there's another 30 or 40 that are open. But I did bring a report. Should have sent it to Kim. So we're doing good with that. We are putting together the plan, the attrition plan. I finally got the base models picked out and sent to Jennifer today, but and we're going to probably use them as our main base replacements unless it's somebody that's a high-end user. Then, but we're figuring on doing 25 in the next fiscal year, getting out the 5-year-old machines and then doing the new ones. And moving on, we worked with Clark to get their fiber run all the way back from here to the courthouse system. They've got their entrance system and the CCTV for the new EMS building. So we basically handed over all the networking stuff they needed and turned back their fibers for them for that. I don't know, I haven't heard back from them. I guess your CCTV's working and all that now, and you're making badges and all that. But Tyler, Jamie informed me we still haven't completed the CSS rollout, customer self-service portal, so I'm going to get to kicking on that tomorrow. Got a couple other Tyler problems we're working. Alan's working like a beast on Laserfish. There's an upgrade Thursday night that'll take it offline for about 4 hours, and we're going to a new version. I said Fetty's getting really familiar with the ticketing systems, and he should be generating reports moving forward. Doing grunt work every day, all day.
Anybody have anything for Livingston? All right. Thank you, Livingston.
It's my pleasure.
Sean? How's the dispatch, Sean?
We're hanging in there. How are y'all doing this evening? So for February, our call volume, 61 911 calls from homes, 349 from cell phones, with admin calls coming in 1856 and going out 1068 for a total of 3324 or 3334. Sorry. One of the things to notice that it's a kind of a downward trend is actually, I look at it as good months. January and February both, the call volume for phone calls coming into the center was lower. Our calls for service going out, though, still increased. Basically what that means, I kind of looked at the last 2 months. Last month, it was 2 phone calls per call for service. This month was one call per call for service. So less people were calling for assistance or instead of getting those multiple calls on the same type of call. So our total calls for the month were 1,122 with a total for the year of 2071, which is up. The radio project, it's working as intended. It's doing well. We're fine tuning more aspects of it. We're still working on our mapping and location services for our officers so we can see them in dispatch. But the system's working. We're now in the process of decommissioning the old system. So we have guys going out to different sites, pulling out the old equipment. For my staffing, we had one dispatcher that just graduated the academy, and we're finishing up her field training so she can be released as minimum staffing. I have one vacancy with one new hire who just started and is in training. She'll attend the academy on June 9th. And that's all I have for the report. Any questions?
And should have asked this a long time ago. Is there, and I'm looking at either one of you, with the equipment that you're pulling out that pertains to the old radio system, is there any resale value or is it all just scrap?
Everything is like pennies on the dollar is what I
Well,
hear.
the problem is there is a market out there, but it's gonna cost us money to wipe it. So we're gonna have to figure out, is it gonna be worth the squeeze to pay money to wipe this stuff and then get $5 a piece for them? We're still working through that. Sean did find a dispatch center that could use our Centricom Elites.
What the heck is that?
It's a console. It's the console we were using
There
before.
you go.
We ended up giving those away because several people had provided spare parts to us because they haven't supported it in probably 10 years. So we provided that to them. But as far as subscriber units and the old repeaters, we're keeping all of them because our paging system still works on them. We're going to reprogram all those to our paging system and then have those for hot standbys and backups. Yeah, and Jonathan and I have already been talking about it. We've got a lot of surplus property that we have, and we're looking to see if it's.
We normally do very well on sales of surplus property.
Well, the thing is, Mr. Chairman, can we?
Yeah, Parks and Rec.
Thing is, can we, and it'd be a board decision, because we have to look at our policy, I don't think it allows us to gift, but can we gift it to other unfortunate departments that this may be an improvement for them? So, those are things we're talking about this time.
Not at all. I think that's a great thing if you can do it. I mean, good gosh. Anybody else got anything for Sean? Thanks, Sean. All right, Tiffany, you're sitting there. How's CSA going? We know about the supplemental appropriation. How's everything else other than that going?
I can say that we're very busy. Yeah, our numbers are up from last year. In pulling for the 2023-2024 fiscal year, we had served 35 children through the CSA program. As of right now, we've served 53, and that number is increasing just with either foster care or school or court. So I'm serving across the board. So yes, our numbers have increased this past fiscal year. So I'm not sure if you want to circle back to me for the. Okay.
How's availability of foster homes? Because it seemed years ago it seemed like it was very low, and then y'all really ramped it up and got people in there. Where are we at now with it?
So the state really pushes us in trying to find families that are relatives. That's one of our main focus if we can. But then you sometimes have barriers that prevent us to be able to use relatives. So we will try to use local homes if we have the availability. But we are struggling with that. But even just placements in general for the state of Virginia, we are really struggling into finding, resulting in staying in the office with kids multiple nights until placement is available. So that is one thing that we work with the state with, the Safe and Sound group, who Ms. Ward actually talks with in regards if we have a child that has to stay within the agency. But the workers will document the amount of facilities and homes that we contact, and between no's or just they don't have the availability. So we do keep track of that documentation just to show our proof of effort for the state.
All right. Anybody else have anything for Tiffany? Yeah. Thank you, Tiffany. Ms. Campbell, tell us about the town. Welcome.
Thank you. The town is alive and well this week.
This week we have a joint planning commission meeting with a special request trying to get Dr. Vega, the dentist down the street, to get his site plan approval and hopefully get him moving forward in a very positive direction, because we all look forward to having him back in the community and open as soon as possible. I have seen some of his drawings, and the building and changes that he has are quite beautiful and a great enhancement to the town. Our DMV audit has been completed this past month, and we are awaiting that response. Our annual budget season is here as well, and workshops will be scheduled later this week in our meeting for the public to be in attendance to. Had a wonderful meeting with a potential buyer to the new to the former general store. I understand a contract is there, and that he is over the moon to bring some new opportunities. I do ask that the county continue to work well with the town as more plans develop, but it's an exciting time for the town and the county of Madison if this follows through. And then this Sunday, I do have a public speaking event as the keynote speaker to the Beta Club induction ceremony, and I only bring that up that if any of the Madison departments have any volunteer needs, I would be happy to include that in the speech, because volunteerism is a huge thing that the town is looking at, and just wanted to open up to any of the other organizations that you all have. I know they work well with the Parks and Rec, and I think maybe the animal shelter, but I know that they are looking for more volunteer options to inspire these new students, the new inductees for the coming 2 years. That's it. Thank you.
All right, any questions for Jennifer? Thank you, Jennifer. All right, I think we made it all, what? Oh, Tina? Hello. All right.
Anything
Thank you.
from,
Uh-huh.
you have Mr. Henry from REC?
Oh, yeah,
anything?
yeah. Mr. Henry, anything to add from REC? Welcome. All right. Give him a microphone, please.
Bruce,
Hold on.
we'll add
Mr.
it to
Henry.
your assist staff.
Tell us things.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Not used to this. Hi. Just wanted to say we had a pretty rough month as far as weather events, and I wanted to relay from our line crews, talked to the director earlier today. Just wanted me to publicly thank all EMS, all emergency services personnel in terms of their coordination and helping us out during those outage events. In terms of fiber connections, we have made 300 connections. Firefly has 300 members signed up and connected. We have a lot more service drops that are complete, but they haven't finished that coordination with Firefly to get the routers installed. So still a lot more to come on that.
What are they discussing today at their 4 o'clock phone call?
I don't know. I know they do have that call today, but I don't know exactly what they're discussing
I
today.
think they're about to, what it appeared was they're about to do another service area, start linking people up. We hear about the ones that have been connected at this point, and everybody's super satisfied, so I mean, that's great too.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And
Anybody have anything else for Mr. Henry? I have a question. Please.
yes, sir.
This is kind of way out there, but where do you know, or where could we find PJM's long-term plans for power infrastructure upgrade in the county?
I could take that back to the office and get an answer for you. I don't know off the top of my head.
That's something we would appreciate, if all the information that we could get on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Henry, you and I will connect after the meeting, and we'll disseminate that information when available.
That sounds great, and I'll give you updates as far as today's meeting with Firefly as well.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Henry.
Thank you.
All right. Have we gotten everybody else? I think so. Let's move on. Let's go consent agenda. We've got minutes from 2/13/2025. We have minutes from 2/20/25/25. And then we have a supplemental appropriation number 20 for CSA, which is the use of the assigned fund balance. Does anybody have questions on the CSA supplemental? We do have people here that will talk about it. The total on that supplemental is $563,709. The local side of that is $122,941, and that is from our CSA stabilization fund. Anybody need further explanation? By all means.
So I sit on the board with Mrs. Woodward, and she does a great job at spending as much of the state money and all that is stuff she can first. I just really want to reassure the board that she stretches the local dollar as far as she can, and while still giving families what they need to be successful and help them. All right?
And I have
Please.
And I'm not sure how much you could provide, but what do you see as the major driving factors for these increase in demand for these services? Is there any identifiable factors? Does it tend to ebb and flow over time? I'm just curious.
Like comparing as of last year, only having serving 35, and now we're up in the 50s. So that does make a big jump in funding. When we have placements for IEP kids that I by law have to fund services for, those can be pricey placements for education. We had some residential kids that needed some extensive care, which can be very costly. We try to use Medicaid as much as we can, but some facilities don't have Medicaid. They just do not. They want full service of CSA funding. But like I said, as Mr. Dawson had reported, we do our best in trying to use whatever other funding that we have available. Also, as a safe and stable funding, which is $18,000 that we get from the state to assist on other sides of services that we can. But we try to use any funding source that we certainly can use. But if CSA is the last resort of funding, we have to serve those children. So, but the cost of services are going to continue to increase. Unfortunately, that's something that I don't have control over. But we just have to monitor the length of services, but also making sure the quality is there too.
Just to follow up on Jim's question, because I didn't hear it and you probably said it, but so there's a number of kids went from 20-something to 50-something?
30.
I'm sorry, 30 to 50?
35 to 50.
Yeah, we had served 35 children through CSA last year, and we're up to 53 right now, and that number is going to change as of today as well.
Like Jim said, is that just a blip, or are we seeing more people moving into the county that need those services? Or what would you put that reason for?
So it's how to explain it when back in 2016 and 2017, we had a heroin epidemic, which ended up causing an influx in children coming into foster care. Then we hit into 2020 to where literally we had no kids in school. You had zero kind of socialization that was happening. So there was a lot that went down. So our numbers looked amazing. Now we're kind of in this trend of domestic violence. We're seeing drug use, such as meth, as being an issue within our county. We've seen fentanyl. So it's really just different trends. I say the older trends of kind of things and of drugs and domestic violence within the homes. So, and when they are court ordered to come into foster care, we are required to serve those children. But I have no control over kind of what's happening within certain areas. Yeah,
I know you don't have control. I was just wondering if there was a reason behind it.
Yeah, I'm court ordered to serve these children, and our goal is always to return these children back home the quickest that we can. But sometimes that's not always the best choice. But that's determined through, the foster care service system, me serving them with prevention services and any other tools that we're able to provide the families to educate them to get those kids back home if we can, or at least to effective kin.
All right, well, thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
No, he asked my question.
No, please. Oh, excuse me. All right, consent agenda, we have 2 sets of minutes and supplemental appropriation number 20. What further do we need to go into on consent agenda?
Mr.
Please,
Chairman, if
yes,
I
sir.
may, and Ms. Warren can correct me if I'm not correct. To Tiffany's point, when we were going through a lot of fluctuation years ago, past board and finance directors worked on setting up a joint stabilization fund That's anything from probationary services, I think the regional jail, as well as CSA. So the supplemental appropriation that Ms. Warren has prepared for you explains that. So this will not come out of contingency. It will come out of that stabilization fund that's in fund balance. So I
Right,
just
and
wanted to
that's a
clarify
line
that.
item in our budget every year.
That is in our, I guess you can say, assigned.
It's in the, if we look at our fund balance breakdown, it's under assigned fund balance.
So that'll show up in your CAFR.
All right, anything else on supplemental appropriation number 20 and 2 sets of minutes? What would y'all like to do with the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
And I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you, Tiffany. We do have some special appearances. Ms. Shepherd, tell us about VDOT's quarterly report, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Am I on? Okay, just wanted to check.
Maybe. Oh, maybe. We don't know. No. Yeah, there you go.
Do I sound like it? There we go, okay. Who's got my slides? Okay. So I don't have a lot of updates for you this time based on last time. If we go to the first slide there, Pratt's Roundabout is moving forward. Last milestone was an environmental review. Next milestone is preliminary design, and the ad date is still winter of 2027, so still a couple years out. Whippoorwill Road, I left this on here. It's under construction. It's in the same shape as it was in when we ended the season last year. But we are looking to come back to that road very soon and do the surface treatment now that the board has decided to switch from asphalt to surface treatment. And I'll talk more about that in just a second. Next slide, as far as construction activities, the Route 707 Pine Hill Road Bridge replacement is still ongoing. Still expect the completion early of December 2025. Route 656 Courtney Hollow Lane over Polecat Branch, that's a superstructure replacement. That project is anticipated to begin April 14th with a 4-week duration. And that will have multiple overnight closures. As far as traffic engineering right now, we have our Wolftown Hood Road speed study that's in progress. I think if we didn't get it started next week, it should be kicking off next week. And then because I didn't have a lot to update you on this month, I wanted to go ahead and introduce the secondary 6-year plan for discussion. We've already had some preliminary discussions about the type of surface, and I appreciate that. That helped us kind of finalize our numbers and get a better figure for you to look at. So just as a reminder, the secondary 6-year plan is the unpaved grant funding to hard surface roads. The road must be in the state system, must carry a minimum of 50 vehicles a day, but no more than 1,500, must be predominantly used for local traffic with minimal anticipated traffic growth, require minimal, if any, improvements to alignment and drainage features, and our goal is to obtain a width of 16 feet for 2 vehicles to safely pass, but we would prefer 18 feet if we can get it. Right now, Madison County has a total of about 80 miles of gravel roads, just based on traffic count, so that 50 to 1,500 threshold. We have about 40 miles that can qualify, but a field review is required. We are working through that list to field verify them so that we can have a more accurate picture of what that looks like. And of course, as we get more guidance on the recent legislation change for this funding, that may affect the discussion as well. And that, just as a reminder, that legislation is to allow us to make improvements to the road without necessarily ending in a paved or hard surface, which is a good opportunity. So here is the numbers for this year. I just got this late last week. So fiscal year 2031 is what we're really looking at. So your allocations remain the same, almost identical to last year of 375, 332 to program into fiscal year 2031. And currently, the priorities are shown here. And I'm going to talk through these numbers in a little bit more detail just to help us get a better picture. So Emmett Road, we finished that last year. That was asphalt. Our original estimate was 67,500. That went up just a little bit to 76,672. And we had that fully funded, so that wasn't a problem. Now, the roads onward, except for the last portion of Emmett, which is the last one on the list, we have changed our estimates to reflect surface treatment. So Whipple Road last year, we had an estimate with asphalt of 552,000. If we were to continue with asphalt this year, that estimate would have gone up to 700,000. So although our estimate last year, 552, doesn't look like it's a big difference from the 478 shown, which is the surface treatment, in reality, you've actually saved quite a bit of money just on that one road. So using surface treatment, the new estimate is $478,000. You had previous funding. So as of this fiscal year, July 1, if the plan is approved, the remainder of $50,000 will be applied, and we can finish that project and close it out. Next on the priority list is Walker's Mill Lane. That also decreased in cost. The new estimate for asphalt went from $514,000 to $615,000. So with the surface treatment, you're down at $376,000. So also a significant savings. That will receive $308,000 this fiscal year, and then the remainder, $57,000, almost $58,000, will be put forth at in fiscal year 27. Next is Turner Drive. That's a 0.44 mile section. That new estimate is $190,000, same as before. The $157,000 for asphalt has gone up to $208,000, so that is also still a savings. That will receive a partial bit of funding this fiscal year just to get us started with preliminary engineering, with the remainder to be funded in fiscal year 27. Next on the list, we have Tom Johnston Road. That will be funded partially in fiscal year 27 and the remainder in fiscal year 28. We then have Mount Zion Church Road. That estimate is $372,000, and that will be funded over 3 fiscal years, starting with a small portion in 27 and then 28 to finish in 29. Next on the list is Wrights Lane. That estimate is $344,000. That will also be funded over 3 fiscal years of 28, 29, and fiscal year 30. And then last on the list as it stands is Emmett Road, and we left that as asphalt as requested to make the entire road a consistent surface. That estimate is $350,000 and will be funded over 29, 30, 31. We can likely construct it in 30 and just pay ourselves back in 31, which leaves a current unpaved grant allocation of $357,738 that has not been allocated. And I will stop right here and answer any questions.
Jonathan, you had a whole bunch of comments. Well, hold on, let's go back. What happened to Turner? Did we add distance? I'm sure you addressed it, because everything else went down, but Turner went up.
So Turner Drive, for asphalt as of last year, we had said it was about 157. Now with our new asphalt prices, it went up to 208,000. So the price did go down some, not as drastically as the others, but it is a lot shorter of a section. But yes, it did decrease with the surface treatment.
All right. Jonathan, you had comments about the unpaved grant allocation money that's available and potentially not adding new roads to the 6-year plan. Am I mischaracterizing that?
My concern was even taking the positive step you have, moving from the hard surface like what you see on 29 to a tar and chip, is yes, there will be cost savings. So that was step one. We had the conversation, the board said go that route, and I communicate back to Ms. Shepherd. But the concern, I guess, or the issue that I raised, Carrie, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that even with those savings, if you will, or going that positive direction, it would probably be hard to add a road in this year's plan other than what we have because of funding availability. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct. Unless the funding priorities change, you're looking at adding either, a road for hard surfacing or one that fits the new legislation that we have not quite received final guidance on in fiscal year 31.
So you would have that one out year available in this 6-year plan.
We can add to it. It's like.
Yeah, for FY 31 year. For Emmett Road, I have a quick question on that because I think I heard you said part of that was already paved. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that would be the former surfacing, and then there's a remaining portion that has to be paved?
No, the first portion of Emmett Road we finished last year.
Right, so there's a remaining portion
Yes.
to be paved?
Yes.
Okay, So I just want to clarify the way you've got it programmed in here now, and I want to make sure we communicate correctly. Is the board's desire that other half to go to your new method or make that look the same, meaning they would put down the material they used in the first half?
You live down there. What's the story?
It's in there as the same.
It's
so-
paved, they paved the first piece,
Yeah.
might as well pave the rest.
It makes
Right.
sense to be consistent that
Agreed.
way. That would
Yeah,
be the
it's-
only road in this program that would be the hard treatment versus the tar and chip.
Right.
All right,
Okay.
let's proceed with that.
What do you think, Steph?
There you go. Yeah, there you go. All right, other questions? Please. Yeah, shoot.
Ms. Shepherd, what is the difference in life expectancy of tar and chip versus regular asphalt paving before it will need to be reconditioned or reapplied?
I mean, we like the asphalt because it does last longer, but at the same time, it does depend on the type of traffic that's using the road. If it's primarily passenger vehicles, then that surface treatment is gonna last, probably comparable to asphalt. But if it's heavier equipment, trucks, things like that, then it could wear a lot faster.
Okay.
I don't have an exact time frame for you, but, I mean, generally speaking, asphalt does last quite a bit longer than surface treatment, depending on the vehicle use.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Then I have one other perennial question for you. Is the repaving of Route 230 West anywhere on VDOT's radar?
I will double check what the status
East,
is of
excuse
that.
me, not west. West was done.
Yeah, I think 2027, but you'll have to go back and look at it. I think when we rode around, which is probably been 2 years ago, I think 2027, but please double check
Yeah, I'll double check.
Thank you.
All right, other questions, Ms. Shepherd,
I get-
comment, please.
I got one. Up in the other part of our packet today, it says maintenance activities. Ms. Shepherd said, VDOT area headquarters crews completed the regular maintenance activities during the past month. So what does regular maintenance mean? I mean, I travel from Etland to Madison, every day and there are trees and stuff that are still down and in the ditches and all that stuff. So I would consider that regular maintenance, or is that not correct?
So, yes and no. We had a lot of debris come down over the storms.
Absolutely.
Including even last year with the hurricanes that came through. We have plans to get special equipment to go around the county and pick up that debris. So in this case, since it's widespread, we're having some outside help. So it would be, I guess, a little bit outside of our normal routine maintenance, but I would still consider it routine. It's
Okay.
just we've got to acquire some additional help.
All right. Very good.
Good. Anything else?
We-
Yeah, Dustin, go.
So I met with a citizen last week about Lindsay Lane, and we rode Lindsay and Berry Mountain Lane. And sure enough, I was gonna talk to you today about it. He texted me and said, hey, thanks for getting them out here, which I said, I'd love to take credit, but I didn't. But yeah, there was a lot of trees and logs. I need to go back and ride it. I didn't get a chance to today, but just a lot of trees and logs in the ditch, stuff protruding into the road. And those little dirt roads are narrow anyway, so, maybe I'll go ride out and see. I'll have Jonathan email you and let you know what I discovered, but those two, if you could keep on your radar too. All of them.
April, we're doing our 6-year public hearings. Is that right?
If, I like to, if you are fine with the plan, or do you want to add a road, based on that, we can get Carrie to finalize the draft, and then we would come to the board to schedule a public hearing. So the question is, you've got monies in FY 31 that haven't been programmed. I guess it's not the end of the world to not put a road on FY 31 if you don't want to, but you have
We
the
probably
option.
need to go back and look through the list completely.
Maybe ask
and
them to
proceed.
recommend and then, okay.
And if I could just add to, the guidance for us to follow on that legislation is being finalized right now. So another option too is to wait till we have that finalized, since you have plenty of, years ahead of you. And then if you want to consider not hard surfacing, we could take a look at other roads that might need some, a higher level of maintenance that you could add to.
All right, so your recommendation is to wait after April 15th?
Yeah, I mean, it's up to, of course, it's up to you, but at this point in time, because it's 6 years out, I don't know that there's necessarily a rush unless you want to rearrange the priorities. And there may be some other opportunities to do some improvements on roads without paving.
All right, so there is no timeline for us to have to approve the 6-year plan, is what you're saying?
To approve the plan, yes, but to
So
have,
what's the answer for that? When is the 6-year plan need to be approved by?
June 1 would be fantastic.
Okay, thank you. All right, so June 1, we need to get all this stuff together. If you all have recommendations, I would appreciate if you send it on down to Jonathan. He'll disperse it to us with traffic counts and all the different things and maybe additional maintenance items. And then we can aim to try to get a public hearing in place prior to the June 1st deadline that you set. Does that work?
Mr.
Please.
Chairman, a hard target, if I can set for myself,
Please.
would be May 13th. The reason why I'm staying around away from April, you have equalization, you have a lot of things going on in April, so I recommend May 13th. We can work with VDOT. It gives enough time to come back to you at prior board meeting or future board meetings to make sure that's finalized, and then we can advertise for the May 13th meeting if that's the board's approval.
I think that's what I was looking for specifically, is a date, so we can set this and move on with this process.
Okay.
Very good. Anything else from Ms. Shepherd? Please.
Ms. Shepherd, you said that the maintenance, the superstructure on, what road was that?
Over Pole Cap.
Courtney Hollow, several overnight closures. Will that have access to emergency vehicles when we close that?
Yeah, yes, we always make sure that we
Okay.
have taken that into account, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, anything else? Thank you, Ms. Shepherd.
Thank you.
David Foley, come up and talk to us about our audit. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Thanks for having me here this afternoon. Again, my name's David Foley with Robinson Farmer Cox Associates, and we perform the financial statement audit for the county's fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024. And here to present the results of that to you all. As part of the audit, there's two different documents that we issue. One is the audited financial report, and then the second is our communication letter with those charged with governance. I'll start first with the audited financial report. And before I get into the results of the audit, just a brief overview of the audit that we do for the county and schools. So as part of the financial statement audit that we do for the county and schools, there's really three main pieces to that audit. One is, we audit the financial statements to make sure that the county's financial statements have been prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The other two pieces of the audit we do in accordance with government auditing standards. One is, in addition to just looking at the numbers themselves, we while we're out doing the audit, we gain an understanding and look at the internal controls that the county has over its financial reporting. We do this for the basis of designing our audit procedures. And then certainly in certain cases, we will test the controls to make sure that they're operating as they were designed. And then the third piece of the audit is the federal compliance piece. So whenever a locality expends over $750,000 of federal grant expenditures, you have to undergo what's called the single audit, federal compliance audit, as part of the financial statement audit. And between the county and schools each year, you always exceed that, so it's always part of the audit. So while we're doing the audit for the major federal grant programs for the county and school board, we review the compliance with those programs. So basically, OMB provides a compliance supplement that lists the various compliance requirements that you have to comply with when expending the federal grant program. So as part of that, we'll go through that checklist to make sure that the county and schools are complying with those requirements. So those are just the three main pieces of the audit that we do. So as such, when we get into the audited financial report, there are three different reports from us that communicate the results of the audit. The first is on page 7, numbered page 7. And this is our independent auditor's report. And so in this report is where we state we did perform an audit on the county's financial statements. And in the second paragraph, this report is where we issue our opinion on the county's financial statements, which we have issued an unmodified opinion on the county's financial statements. An unmodified opinion is the cleanest opinion an auditor can give on the set of financial statements. Basically, an unmodified opinion means that the county's financial statements have been prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So again, clean opinion on the financial statements. The other two reports from us are way in the back of the report in the compliance section. The first report starts on page 159. And the first report back here is our report over the internal controls over financial reporting. This report was clean as well. We noted no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the county's internal controls over its financial reporting. Overall, we feel the county has strong internal controls in place over its financial reporting. And then 2 pages over is the third and final report from us. This is on page 161. This is our report over the compliance with the major federal grant programs in accordance with uniform guidance. Again, this report was clean as well. No significant deficiencies or material weaknesses noted in the county and schools' compliance with the major federal grant programs. Also, no items of noncompliance were noted as part of the audit. So again, all three reports from us were clean. So a clean audit again this year for the county. Just before I move on to the governance letter, just would like to highlight a few items in the financial statements. Back towards the front of the report on page 22, this starts the fund statements for the county's governmental funds. These are always the funds I like to draw attention to because these are the statements that are more in line with the way the county operates and budgets. So the first exhibit on page 22 is Exhibit 3. And this is the balance sheet of the county's governmental funds. And the first column on this statement is the financials for the county's general fund, which is the main operating fund of the county. And so the balance sheet shows the total assets, liabilities, and deferred inflows, and then fund balance at the end of the fiscal year. So we can see total assets for the county's general fund ended the fiscal year with $36.5 million compared to about $8.8 million of liabilities and deferred inflows. And then fund balance, the county's general fund ended the total fund balance for the fiscal year of $27.7 million. And then this fund balance is further broken down between non-spendable, restricted, assigned, and then unassigned. So the unassigned fund balance for the county was $14.5 million at the end of the fiscal year. The other statement I'd like to highlight is the next page over on page 23. This is Exhibit 4, which is a statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So this statement shows the revenues, expenditures, and then the change in the county's governmental fund balances. Again, the first column here is the county's general fund. So during FY '24, total revenues were $34.4 million compared to total expenditures of $31.2 million. And then down towards the bottom, we can see the net change in fund balance during the fiscal year. There was a net increase in the county's general fund balance of $1.2 million during the fiscal year. Always positive to see that number go up. But that's all I have on the audited financial statements. Would like to switch over to our communication letter with those charged with governance. Basically, what this letter is auditing standards require that we communicate certain things to you all at the end of an audit. So we do so in the form of this governance letter. So just briefly would like to go through these with you all. First, some qualitative aspects of accounting practices. And here we communicate that management is responsible for the selection and appropriate use of accounting policies. We noted no transactions entered into during the year that there was a lack of authoritative guidance. Accounting estimates are an integral part of preparing the financial statements. Just the more significant estimates that are included in the financial statements. One is management's estimate of depreciable lives, which is used to determine depreciation expense. And then the other big significant estimate is management's estimate of pension and other post-employment liabilities. These estimates are actually determined by an independent actuary that does a study to determine those. So those are just the more significant estimates that are included in the financial statements. Difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We had no difficulties in dealing with management and performing the audit. If we had any, we would have to disclose those to you all. Really, Jennifer and all the county and school staff does an excellent job of working with us during the audit. They do an excellent job of having information ready for us when we come on site. As well as while we're on site, they do an excellent job of answering the questions that we have and providing any additional information. Certainly we know that the county staff is busy with their normal day-to-day jobs, and to have 4 auditors walking in and out of your office can be, I'm sure, a little
Exciting.
Yeah. So,
exciting.
but they always do an excellent job of working with us, so just would like to commend the staff on that. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements. There were no uncorrected misstatements. Any adjustments that we had for the audit have been included in the county's accounting system, so that way the county's records agree with what was in the what's in your audited financial statements. Just a few more here. Disagreements with management. We had no disagreements with management in terms of any accounting or auditing matters. Again, if we had any, we would have to disclose the nature of those to you all. Management representations, we do request certain representations from management at the end of an audit. We get that in the form of a signed representation letter. And then lastly, management's consultations with other independent accountants, as far as where management did not consult with any other independent accountants in terms of second opinion shopping. Again, those are just required communications we have to make to you all. But that's all I have, but be happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Carter?
Yeah, I'll get, Kim, could you go back to page 23, Exhibit 4, or, yeah, Exhibit 4. go down to the bottom, where the change in fund balance, the net change in fund balance. Okay, see, net change in fund balance, 1,210,752. So that includes the county operations, schools, and authorities all together at this point?
Well, this actually just includes the operations of the county's general fund.
Of the county?
Of the county. So this doesn't, while this includes the contribution that you make to the authority or to the school board, this doesn't include their operations. Those are included in separate statements.
Yeah, okay. So any authority that didn't spend all their money, we'll find that separate somewhere else. In the schools, if they didn't spend all their money, that would be somewhere else as well.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So for the.
Yeah, I think budget versus
Yeah, you can
actual.
look at the budget to actual.
Yeah,
to
on
see
145 or somewhere along in there. Yeah, page 145. All right, okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Who has questions or comments for Mr. Foley? Jonathan, you got anything down there for Mr. Foley?
Just looking further to Mr. Yao's point, maybe, and Kim, go to page 13, please. There's some narrative at the bottom of summary of net positions that reference change with county government and school board. If you were looking for that, the net position, or I don't know if that adds anything to what you were just asking, Mr. Foley.
All right, yeah, thank you.
What else should we be asking you, Mr. Foley? I'm always glad to hear the staff is working with you positively. That's encouraging.
So we can sleep well tonight?
You can.
Okay.
Anybody else? Mr. Foley? Or, go ahead, Jim, please.
You know, I think this audit really demonstrates, the first-class finance department we have led by Ms. Warren. And nothing slips by them. They're very thorough. They're very transparent, and that makes our job a lot easier. Thank you for the audit presentation.
Foley, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next year.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a way to be. Done with special appearances, no public hearings. Jonathan, let's talk about the Industrial Revitalization Fund with Kriglersville Elementary School.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kim is going to pull that up. You may recall at a prior meeting, we had Mr. Shapiro, who is the proposed applicant, had made a request of the county to apply on his behalf for the Industrial Revitalization Funds, which is made available through DHCD. It is an economic development tool. Any local government, whether town or county, is provided one application a year to be considered. It must score at least greater than 70 to even be considered to be awarded. So Mr. Shapiro has identified that grant and has asked the county to apply. You had encouraged some stakeholder meetings, so I'm going to read from up above. Hold right there for a minute, Kim. Staff, that includes myself, Hannon, Ms. Gardner, and as well as Mr. Parsons from the IDA board. We all met with Felix, and we had DHCD on the call as well, just to kind of regroup. We asked a bunch of questions at that meeting, but let's fully understand how this works or would work and the options that the county has. So there are grants and there are loans. This is and there's packet information behind this for DHCD, so whether you all want to go back and review or general public in general, it talks about what's eligible, what's not, timelines and all for this grant. So the county would be the applicant on this. You have a couple options. If you wanted to move forward, instruct the IDA to administer and monitor this program, or there is what I call a service provider that is familiar with these grants, that has worked with DHCD on many projects. They're known as Locus. So they would be able to service and administer this grant. The difference between the two grant administrations, and it may or may not be a key point, but I'm throwing this out here for the board for their information. Going through the IDA, it would allow those funds to be able to be used in a manner as they're paid back, more in a revolving type of loan fashion. Think years ago there was some micro enterprise monies available, small. I think there was a loan made to the last nickel was one of the businesses, and I believe lastly that money was closed out and provided to the town as well. So the money could stay if it's through the IDA. If you go with the service company named as Locust, that money would then travel with them. I would want to point out that, again, you are allowed an application a year, so it doesn't mean you wouldn't have another opportunity to bring funding in for economic development. So there are pros and cons to weigh out. Mr. Shapiro, if the county moved forward and was awarded this grant, regardless of whoever would administer it, an IDA or a service provider such as Locust, he would not be required to pay that back until, he's actually got a certificate of occupancy and is up and running, making revenue. It is stopgap funding, so he would have to demonstrate to DHCD, here are my other funding sources. It can't be, well, I think I have. He would have to demonstrate, here are my other funding sources to make that happen. It is roughly $600,000 that he is asking for as part of this grant. There are fixed terms. So the rate, last year's handout, what's in the packet, was at a 2.5% rate. What they're saying is they would look at the current fixed rate minus 1%, and the term would be 20 years. There would have to be, let's run through hypotheticals. If you said, yes, let's apply, there's a resolution, there's all that you would have to do. He applies, they say, okay, we're going to award the grant to you. Before any monies is exchanged, point out the last sentence there in the second paragraph under the summary. In advance of any distribution of monies, DHCD would require, they shall, we can use the legal word, an executed performance agreement with the developer. So I know there were some concerns or talks either amongst the board or I think I talked to a citizen about this matter, about a one-for-one match or money's costing the county. Clearly, this agreement, and as understood by DHCD, would be between the developer and DHCD. So the county, they're not a part to that. They're not liable for any of that. Mr. Wright did observe that call, so he is definitely legal. I am not, but that's what I heard in our conversation. So go up to the recommended part, please. Kim, thank you. So basically, I think you're at a point to decide, unless you have other steps. The grant application should be sometime, I think, at the end of April, I believe, when it's due. So you have some time, but if you'd like to move forward, staff would just need a direction from you to do that. And the next step, if you want to move forward, we would bring back at your next meeting a resolution to formalize approval that would go with the grant application. So that's what staff has for you today is feedback, and we stand by for your direction. Mr. Wright, do you have anything you'd like to add, sir?
The only one that came out of that meeting that I think kind of solidified and we had talked about previously was whether or not we go through the IDA or use this Locust group, which has, I'd assume, some type of cooperative agreement.
So just one thing on the Locust
Please.
group, I think there are a repeat player in this. They used to be known as
Virginia Community or
Virginia
something.
Community Capital, and then I think they've expanded into more states, and so they rebranded as Locust.
It was very, very clear that we should go through Locust. The idea of having that money revolve around Madison is very, very attractive. The administrative side, both for building and for finance, probably would be not a super heavy lift, but it would definitely require time. The other one that is the more interesting one is we can apply for this for qualified projects annually. And that doesn't exclude the town from doing their own thing, because they're their own entity. I just think going to the locust group is a better direction to go. And this also would go right down the path. I mean, Jonathan got us to identify Banco and Kriglersville as, Otis will shoot me, but is like blighted area, which I don't think anybody agrees with, but there needs a little bit of help, and that's a good place to start. This certainly goes right down the path of economic development, and with no money coming out of the county, it all coming from DHCD, and then binding Felix to that, it kind of solidifies him being here for a while with the subsidized purchase price that we have put in place with him. Seems like a pretty good deal. Other comments, questions, thoughts? What would y'all like to do there?
What were the numbers in a year if we did it, if we administered it?
30,
35.
Yeah, 30 something.
35, 36.
That could be used for other economic
It
development.
could.
Right.
The last time we did this, and we did release it to the town, and it was like $30K, and they used it for their planning grant that they're currently going through. It seemed like it was a pain in the neck, and maybe I'm characterizing that wrong, Miss Warren. I'm sure I am. But it floated around. We talked about that for like 4 months, just getting rid of $30K to the town. I mean, it just seemed like a ridiculous way to go about it. If we were going down the path and we had a whole bunch of projects where we were wanting to put that infusion into lots of local businesses and probably standing up some type of department or authority on top of it, then that would be a play, but I don't see it. I just don't see it at this point. Hannon, you agree, or what do you think?
I agree, and I mean, I think one of the IDA members was concerned of just how time intensive they were. I think the phrase was, do we have enough throughput to be able to actually execute on this?
Look at that, to that point, that last paragraph there is, to that point, who's best suited. Felix was asked, I think Mr. Chairman may even ask me, what's the duration? I think initially he said 12 months, but we kind of got him to say, well, not got him to say, he kind of admitted that maybe longer than that, so it could be up to 24 months. So it is a pretty sizable duration to administer that grant.
The
So
other one that was kind of interesting about the whole phone call, and DHCD was super informative. I mean, just they had their ducks in a row. It was great. There is a 1-year clawback on investment, so he can submit things if he gets awarded. He can submit expenses over the last year. We know that process has been going on for over a year. So he's got money that is laid out with architects, engineers, and there's some of that money that he will not be able to claw back at all, and that's what I assume is personal money or personal input in money. They also, DHCD, to do this agreement, and I think Locust would just fall right within, he has to have the other funds, the matching funds, secured, and that's his problem, frankly. We wish him the best success, because it's part of Madison, but in the same sense, that's on him. Other comments, thoughts?
Nothing other than, okay, I'm I'm looking at that last sentence in that second paragraph. Should the grant be awarded in advance of any distribution of monies, DHCD will require an executed performance agreement. So what happens if Mr. Shapiro defaults on his payments back to Locust? Then
I don't see the county as having really any part in that.
Okay, I just want to make
that's
sure.
between DHCD, developer, and Locust.
Okay, all right.
Doug Parsons.
Now,
Go ahead.
No.
there was one thing that was, slightly scary where, talking about the clawback, he said they likely won't look to the county for that money. We're not a guarantor on the loan. And they said to date, they've never gone back to a locality to claw back the money. But just the fact that that was even in the realm of possibility was slightly worrisome. But
So what did Doug say? What did Parsons say?
Doug was talking about the performance agreement and tying it to milestones, specific progress that would be. And I think that was more on the side of is whether we administer it versus DHCD,
Right.
and that'll be a different deal.
That'll be
with
between
DHCD.
them.
Yeah, very much. And that was one of the, also the pieces of the administrative ask, that if the county was to administer, we would have to set up those milestones to mark progress towards getting an occupancy.
So, I mean, the only, the only advantage of us doing it is you get those payments back in and that money is available right away to do something else with. But then if Felix were, I mean, Mr. Spear were to default, then that's a different story. And I don't know, the percentage of opportunity to apply and actually get awarded, who knows what that is. I mean, in the grant writing world, if you can hit 15%, you're doing pretty good, I think. But I'm for Locust doing it personally.
There was one other thing just to follow up on that, which was that Locust has its own redeployment fund for money that comes back to them that people can apply for, including within the county.
Jim?
Mr. Wright, you mentioned that it was unlikely. That raised a big red flag. What does the law say with these programs? Or could we be legally culpable for any non-payment of them?
So it requires me to go deeper into it. I mean, the way that he said that they could makes me think that they have some reason to believe that they can. If we're the applicant, right? But we're not a guarantor. So I'm also curious on what in these docs is going to try to say that the county's liable. But I will, it's a great question. I will look at that and get an answer for you.
Well, wasn't there a deed of trust that was involved in this as well?
There is definitely a deed of trust, but I think if we're not the ones administering it, then we're not going to be.
That may be their
involved in that.
collateral. That'll be their collateral, I think, kind of for some of that, if that were to occur, what clawback will you would have the property essentially as collateral?
I think the question in front of us today is whether or not we want to proceed with this as being the co-applicant with, and I think it is just a head shake today. I don't think we have documents in front of us. We don't have any of that, so that would require the formal motion.
Yeah, we'd have to have formal resolution.
Of course. Today, it's more a question, do we want staff to go down the path and start engaging in a more proactive way about this? Something, everybody good on this? Yeah. Everybody good?
Yeah.
Does that work?
So
let's proceed.
What we would do, if I'm hearing correctly, we would bring back whatever necessary, obviously a resolution to the effect and any language from DHCD. So that's,
Yes.
okay.
Everybody good? Yes, sir. Hannon, that work?
Yes, and Mr. Weekly, have they made a decision in terms of, to your understanding about Locust versus IDA?
I heard, thank you for clarifying. I heard Locust, but it wouldn't be
Locust.
bad to get a,
You
okay.
want Locust?
Yes.
Everybody Locust.
Okay.
Thank you, Hannon. All right, get us some documents, then we can come back with a formal motion and report. All right, everybody good on that one? All right, Hannon, in a really quick way, Meadows Lane.
I think.
We're talking about abandoning 100 feet. Go ahead.
Right. I think you've got a couple fairly decent-sized pieces of property that could in the future be subdivided that are part of this. One's where the road ends, and the road is entirely on that one piece of property, but it serves other property behind it. I think the board is rightfully concerned with what are the implications of that sort of down the road in terms of it creating problems. And so, as of right now, the latest I've heard is I believe that all owners are going to need to have to sign on to this in order for it to be valid and enforceable, particularly when these people are gone and we're worried about successors and interest. So, as of right now, I don't think we've got an agreement among all of those people.
Right now, we don't. Mr. Beto was here at the last meeting. He had Frank Dixon sign. Bonnie is certainly a party to that. She needs to sign as well, and I assume that would also mean Mr. Beto's wife would have to sign.
I think he owns it alone.
Is he all the way out?
I
All right,
believe
so
so.
just Bonnie. Talked to Bonnie earlier today. It was a good conversation after we got past some things. It was entertaining. I'm gonna go down there and see Bonnie and give her at least the copy of this road maintenance agreement, and see if she will consider signing it and moving on with it. She says that there is a history but she sees the abandonment as very minimal as well. I'll slide down there, I'll keep Hannon posted, it'll come back to us here at the next at future meeting. Does that work for everybody? All right, done with that one. All right, Jim, how would you like to proceed with your report on economic development?
What I'd like to do is, first of all, give you an update of the timeline on this completion. We're 99% done. We're gonna get some more feedback today. We've got to make some pagination, grammatical checks, and then we have to add the executive summary, cover page, and all that stuff. But the substance of it is completed. And what I'd like to do is possibly have us plan for a formal submission and adoption at perhaps the later March meeting, our regular meeting. Because quite frankly, I'd like to have it ready for the equalization hearing.
All right.
I'd just like to go through and make some and point out some highlights, and otherwise it would take too long. But one of the things that we started out with in this was, where are we as far as the county's revenue and spending? And we did a simple regression model based on historical spending trends, and that's on page 2. This model does not assume an anomalous change, such as having to take on the fire department, paid firefighters. So that's another consideration where there could definitely be a bump in this trend line. But if you look at this, based on this model, by 2029, our budget could be bumping almost $80 million if current trends continue. I'm going to switch over to page 3 at the bottom. And from 2022 to 2024, compared the CPI with county revenue increases and county spending increases. Did not include the year 2021 because that was a 22% inflation year, and that was because coming out of the pandemic. Since 2022, we're on a more normal upward trend line. Basically, what this is telling us is that our spending increases, we're keeping them just below the rate of inflation increase. Our revenue increases are not keeping pace. We're at 4.5% on revenue increases over that period, and 4.96% on spending increases. The other thing I'll point out is we did quite a bit of research. One of the big pieces of that research was our business survey, and I'm on page 4. We had a very good return rate as surveys go, and just a few things to look at here. I think that pointing especially towards what our recommendations are, on page 6, we asked these local businesses what were their priorities on infrastructure need. And of course, we're still at, most folks said 43% that we're still wanting improvement in broadband service, which is ongoing and nearing completion in most areas of the county. Obviously, we know the reason why it's not further along is because some of these companies were fighting over territory early on and delayed some of the VATI grant applications and all that kind of stuff. One of the other areas, the second greatest area, is that expanded public sewer. And this is going to be in one of our actionable recommendations. There's no way we can expect to instigate any type of economic development in our 29 corridor, significant economic development, without the upgraded sewer plant, which is projected, I understand, 2027, but my understanding is that's probably optimistic. And then, of course, controlling the EDUs for that so that we can direct those taps to the areas that we want development in. That lack of capacity in that plant is restricting development right now, particularly in the town of Madison. So infrastructure, as far as the Economic Development Committee is concerned, that is the #1 priority, one of our priorities, probably the first or second priority in making sure that we can push this project along. Moving, just another highlight. On page 8, we asked about real estate, personal property, and machinery and tools tax competitiveness with neighboring jurisdictions. And what we found was the most common response for all three categories was neutral. There was no opinion that was better, competitive, or less competitive. However, 23%, 20 to 23% range said that it was competitive, or 11%, 9 to 11%, slightly competitive. What I found interesting is that 0% on all three categories, there was 0% respondents said that it was non-competitive, which is encouraging that where we are right now is we're not in a bad place, but our biggest concern is where we're going to go from here. We also worked with the Central Virginia Partnership for Economic Development, and they had McGuire Woods come in last summer. Excellent information from them. That's on page 10. We also examined some of the major areas, economic areas, or industries in the county, and how we can improve that. I thought it was interesting. I was just thinking over the weekend when I did the last revision of this about Route 29, the Route 29 corridor, and I was looking at the 2023 daily traffic volume, and I calculated that based upon that, if every car that was coming through the county had folks in it who would stop and eat, or stop at Yoder's, or stop somewhere else, there's a potential that they might spend an average of $60 per car. That equates to $350 million of spendable income that's traversing 29 in a given year. If we could just get 10% or 1 out of 10 cars to stop, that's $35 million in income. Now, outside of putting up a toll road, which we know we can't do, if we can focus more development on getting the 29 corridor moving along, then this is some of the revenue that we're missing. And this is what we've got to get. This is a large part of any growth in our revenue for the county. Of course, we want to do it in a smart way. We don't want to do like a neighbor that has service entrance every 50 feet. We do the parallel service roads and that kind of thing with our development. Also along those lines, I wanted to mention that I had some conversations recently when I was out and about talking to citizens. And number one, of course, upset about the reassessment. But the number one comment that was made about the county government is that, well, the county government does not encourage business development, and oftentimes actively discourages that. Now, whether that's legitimate argument or not, that seems to be the opinion of many persons. And in those conversations, I would ask certain questions about what they think we could do in the county, and I brought up a hot topic, and that was, what about a data center? And the response that I got from everyone was, we're open to it, under the right conditions, which I feel like if I would have asked that question 10 years ago, I would have been run down Shelby Road. Some people would have just had a knee-jerk negative reaction. So I think that people in the county are looking for leadership from us to try to develop business in the county. And as we've said, our objective is primarily the 29 corridor. We're not talking about putting a housing development on Old Rag or building a factory in Uno or a Locust Dale. We have a really good sustainable zone if we manage it correctly to start bringing in tax revenue to cover the expenses we're going to have in the future. So one of the other things that I wanted to go, and this is where I'm going to end, then I'll take questions. Excuse me. I'm recovering from the plague. It's okay. I'm not contagious anymore. The recommendations on page 16. These were rewritten over the weekend to put them into positive, actionable items with general timeframes. The consensus among the committee is that if we don't do that, probably nothing's going to happen. We're looking at the tax policy. Is there any compelling reason why we would want to look at machinery and tools tax modification where we could encourage business. Now, if you go back to the research that was done for this document, that's not necessarily a successful policy, as what the researchers have found is that most of those tax benefits accrue to existing business and do not necessarily bring in additional business. Now, if we're looking at targeted industries, and again, I don't want to keep bringing up data centers, but something along those lines where that type of policy would bring in a business that would generate a lot of money and whatnot, we might need to look at that situation. I don't think that looking at changing that is a priority right now, but I think it should be for consideration and analysis. Zoning policy, some of the things that we looked at, just mentioned the 29 corridor. The other thing that's coming into play is really pushing for the development and adoption of physical impact and economic impact analysis for all project proposals, whether that's business or housing, so that we can look at what effect it's going to have on the revenue, what effect it's going to have on the schools, et cetera, emergency services. And then the possible creation of development zones. And there again, this goes back and ties in with what do we do with expanding our utilities infrastructure so that we can support business development. The number 3 bullet point there, the site development process, this is something that Tracy Gardner has been involved with for many years, and we feel like this needs to be given some impetus, some support to be more proactive in this area with looking at site development, prospective development sites. I think that the committee will need to be part of that. I think that we as a board might need to be pushing that, a little bit more proactive on that. We all know that there's properties that have been sitting around for decades for sale, and nothing ever comes of them. Why is that not happening? That's something I think we need to look at. Utility infrastructure, again, we're going to jump on this sewage treatment plant project. Right now, RSA is looking at rebuilding the plant, which has to be redone. It's out of compliance for DEQ, and they will double the capacity. We want to make sure that our TAPs, our EDUs, are controlled and steered in ways that support the development policies of the county. And we've been in I know we've all been in conversations with our RSA representatives, and we will need to continue to make that concerted effort. Investigate long-range plans for the power infrastructure upgrades. As I asked the gentleman from REC, what is PJM, which is the Regional Power Authority that determines the electric grid upgrades and the expansion of the electric grid. What are we looking at as far as our power infrastructure upgrades to support new businesses? I think it's interesting, Supervisor Buchanan and I and the county administrator and deputy county administrator, we had a conversation with Loudoun County supervisors recently. That's the data center capital of the world. We were asking about data center policy, the problems they've run into, and some of these issues. Again, we're not running out and trying to get a data center, but our job is to try to find some opportunities to consider and not just sit here and wait for them to necessarily come to us. But that was a very fruitful meeting. It was interesting that they have exceeded the amount of power that Dominion is willing to serve that area. There's like 6 gigawatts short, and they really need 11 gigawatts. They're actually building data centers up there now, and they're just leaving them empty because they can't get the power. But there are other alternative technologies for powering those plants. We are continuing on that track for research. Some other things. We do have a natural gas pipeline that runs through the county, and that's something that we could look at leveraging. And so this is where we are, and what the board will have to decide once we officially submit this, and if it's adopted, is what strategies do you want to do to implement these goals? I'm going to suggest that the Economic Development Committee be in charge of this and implement these goals. Now, I'm gonna ask Supervisor Buchanan to chime in here, and because he's been an integral part of this process. Do you have any comments on this?
I mean, other than the fact you just about hit every nail on the head right there, but Mike Turner from Loudoun County, if we were ever to consider a small data center in the county, this guy could write the book, I mean, international book on data centers. He was that, I mean, he didn't have notes. It was right out of his mouth and his brain of how they handled it in Loudoun County and the pitfalls you could run into, but also the amount of money that they were bringing in. It was over $790 million a year and going over $800 million.
Yeah, their budget is
revenue.
$940 million. I think the data centers provide $870 million of that.
And no real increases to infrastructure as far as schools, you know, roads, those type of things. But, I mean, obviously your fire department would have to be upgraded to handle that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it was not using a lot of the county services once they're up and running. So, I mean, that, again, that's something that we're not gonna commit that we're gonna do that, but it's something we need to look at, and that's why we're gonna go up there and take a look at some of his stuff.
Yes, thank you. And this goes back to one other thing, and this is the elephant in the room for Madison County, and I think the reassessment was a wake-up call. The money is coming from the outside, and you are not gonna stop the money from coming from the outside. We've got money that's coming in here, and it's driven our housing prices up to where the point that local folks just really don't have much of a chance to own a house. Looking at some of these businesses, particularly the higher tech businesses, but not necessarily a high-tech business, trying to bring in more jobs into this county that pay well, that can put more of our people on an equal footing to compete with the money that's coming in here. That's the only thing we can do. We can't stop the money from, it's gonna determine where the county goes. Our job is to how are we going to harness that for benefit of our people? And I think it's something that's very doable. I know conversations that we've had in the Economic Development Committee and even on this board is, what does Madison need to do? We don't want to be Culpeper County that's building 900 house plus housing developments and consequently have to build at least another school. You know, we don't want to be Rappahannock County where only the wealthy can live. You know, we don't want to be Greene County with the endless strip malls that are on 29. We want to be Madison County. We want to preserve our rural character, but we want to have sensible economic development in areas that can support the county and maintain its character. So that's kind of our goals and that's our vision. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Who would like to start with questions?
I got a couple.
Yeah.
So one of the things, the sewer is absolutely necessary. Mr. Whelan, he paid, oh golly, I don't know, $1.5 million to put in Gentry Drive. When you go up Food Lion parking lot and take a left, that is exactly. He knew he looked at our Route 29 corridor study, saw the service roads and all that stuff, and he put that in. Now, and I feel bad. I believe Mr. Whelan has passed away now, but he was a great guy. I spoke to him a number of times, and I feel guilty that we haven't got anything going out there. But the fact is, we could get it going. Chick-fil-A and some of those people, they would like to come in here, but we're not gonna do it unless we have the sewer. All right, so number one. Just real quick, I was sent a post by Supervisor Deal in Culpeper regarding, it's on his Facebook page, so if you go look at his Facebook, he was explaining what the data centers, where they are in the process and the income that they talking about being derived. And then I also think we ought to look at what we would like to do or could do with the 200 plus acres we got at the transfer station. I mean, was it 220, 230?
It's I know it's north of 220.
Yeah. You know, that's county land, and it is, it's not agriculture, what do they call it, brown fields stuff, so that's all I got.
Oh, yes. Mr. Weekly, would you know, might want to talk a little bit about what has been transpiring with that property, Mr. Yao, because there have been some inquiries that they've not gone anywhere about getting us to think about what can we do with that because the county does own it.
Thank you, Supervisor Jewett. And first, before I forget my housekeeping, we have not confirmed that March 14th date. Kim has reached out to Supervisor Turner's office. They have not confirmed yet, so we will work to continue that. So my apologies. We hope to have that date soon. Out at the transfer station or the county-owned property, we've had a solar company reach out to us in the past. We met on site, Supervisor Dawson, Supervisor Jewett, and myself, and forgive me if, yep, you were with me. I think we walked around the leachate pond, which is always fun. Don't eat the catfish. But what I would say is there was interest there, but what we told them was, hey, talk to, because they needed contiguous land. There wasn't enough acreage out at the landfill to do their project. They wanted, I think, close to 1,000 acres. So their guidance was talk to the other landowners in the area. If you feel like you've got sound buy-in, then come back to the county. We would look to talk. That person has never came back. I did hold a quick phone call today from a company who reached out about that property unsolicited, and my message to them was similar to what we gave the last solar company, is that the county has interest for use of that property. But, you know, I think this company is looking for at least 500 acres. I said, you need to work or discuss this with contiguous landowners, and if there's serious buy-in, come back to the county and we'll have conversation, whether that involves NDAs at the beginning or whatever. I'd like to transition, if I may, over to site readiness, and I know we've talked about it some, but I think it dovetails in your conversation as well as for the general public to know. Two avenues when it comes to economic development. One is the model that we're currently using, and Jim and the rest of the committee members have put forth good information. There's recommendations there at the end, zoning, tax policy, and so forth. When sitting at the Central Virginia Economic Partnership meetings or Go Virginia meetings, I am your designated rep for those. A lot of those grants that are applied for and received when it comes to site readiness or by locally owned property. So if a government is the majority owner or the outright owner, you stand a better chance to apply and award it. I'm not saying go out and buy land or do something different. I'm just saying other counties have industrial parks, business centers, whatever. Not saying we need that, but that is one option when you control your property. So this is a piece of property. Hoover Ridge is a park. You're probably not going to do that, but the landfill is a piece of property that you control. So it could be marketed if you just tell us what it is you maybe would consider. When it's not publicly controlled, such as the locality owning it, we do have to have an active inventory. And Tracy works very regularly. We have our realtor roundtables and we work with realtors. It has to be actively marketed. So when the state, and it's not every month anymore, it used to be about once a month, you know, you get one or two what I call kind of fact-finding missions from the state. You know, they'll say, hey, Project Tony, Project Susan, whatever, looking for this many acreage, flat or whatever, you know, may need to be near an interstate or railroad, or they'll list the things that they're looking for. And we will scour that inventory to try to put forth properties. The last time we were trying to work with a company that eventually located in Orange County, it was like a drone defense company, I think MITRE, M-I-T-R-E. They wound up going into their industrial park over in Orange. We just could not pull together enough. It wasn't only, I think, like a 10-acre site they were looking for, but they needed air rights on adjoining properties to fly and do things like that. So outside of owning our own property, we do, when the state gives us those projects, if you will, that's exploratory, we give them the gamut. To Supervisor or Vice Chairman Yao's point with the Leland property, I have talked to that realtor who worked with that developer at the time, and it is the sewer that's holding up that property. One property is owned by Dr. Vega. We understand that he will maybe hold that property for investment and look to do some things in the town. The other is another, so there's two properties sold out there. The one furthest from 29, someone would have interest to bring something there, but they're waiting on the sewer. So that property is a perfect example of the developer, the planning commission, the board of supervisors working. Service road goes even beyond of what you see now. There is a access point that's been approved. You see the sign on 29. There's also access granted to the next adjoining property. There's an LLC company that owns prior before you get to the Estes property. So that is the actual, that's good development you all have allowed, but it is definitely the sewer that is holding up that project because water extends through there now. So that's a little feedback between site readiness and applying for some of these grants. Staff stands ready at any point in time if you want to market the acreage around the transfer station a little more. We can certainly step up those efforts, and whether it's zoning and so forth. Some of the brownfield will be more towards the front of the property, so you've got a lot of that site that would not be brownfield, but be very suitable for other things beyond solar, for example. So that's just food for thought in the future. If you come back or the committee recommends, hey, let's market that property where it's data centers or distribution centers or whatever, we can certainly look to do that.
All right, who else? All right, I got a couple. Interesting reading through all this. I appreciate y'all taking it on. I did see, I was surprised not to see public-private partnerships put in place for education when it pertains to like workforce readiness and CTE stuff. We've seen with some local companies, and it's small, but having those partnerships really seems to stabilize and kind of put young people in the right path with skills that they have interest in. I think it's much more fruitful to have that private partner instead of just the schools doing it. The funny one on government discouraging business, I think a lot of that is mostly kind of misinformation. The one I still hear about to this day is Tractor Supply, which is completely incorrect. That was an internal study that they did, and they decided to locate in Green. The tax incentive thing I thought was interesting as well, just on the basis that it never is the deciding factor, it appears.
Right.
It's just another factor that may make us more marketable. On your site readiness, are you all advocating for partnerships with the private sector to actually put county money out, or just to explore site readiness that would be potential?
Well, in stage one, we would be trying to inventory prospective private as well as public land and any potential partnership. But as far as putting any county money in, that's not even on the radar right now. Not that it's off the table, but it's not on the radar.
The one that I really want to shoot at is your NIMBY page, and I like that in a lot of ways, and I really want to use one against Hannon. You have NIMBY, which we all know. You've got banana. And that's I like that one a bunch. I'm looking for what it stands for. It is build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything, and then CAVE, which is Citizens Against Virtually Everything. I think all those are hilarious, and I'm going to work them into my repertoire somehow. I do think it's something that we've got to get the county to take ownership in, and that's the way that economic prosperity will happen, and trying to identify how to get people to have vested interest and understand that business is good for localities, not just on the employment, not just on the revenue, but as a whole package, is a big player, and that's the one that I think is super interesting. It really, really is, and how to do that is a challenge, and we saw it with the assessment, which kind of simmered down after explanation. Maybe that's a play that we go towards. Going towards Loudon, the other one on the, and I appreciate going down the path on the natural gas as a potential energy source, which definitely works in our favor. And the word unfortunate being used as far as the power corridor being put in place, and now we're going through the comp plan at this point. and have added it to the comp plan, the or the, oh, what was it, corridor?
The defined corridor.
Thank you. I think that's interesting as well, but I mean, we've just got to be more creative in how we go about courting these people. You talked about previously, Jim, there are smaller data centers. Have you all found anything with that?
No, but I will go back to the natural gas issue, because the data center that we are planning on visiting in Loudon is powered exclusively by natural gas turbines. And the reason that they did it is because they couldn't get any more power off the grid.
That was
So-
a temporary start, right?
It was a
So they thought
temporary
they didn't
start,
power?
but now it's permanent. So that's a possibility. Small-scale data centers, there's one in Harrisonburg, and I talked to those folks last year. They didn't see any additional interest there at the time, but now I'm hearing that there's renewed interest in the Harrisonburg region for data centers.
All right. The only other, I got
Well,
two,
just back up.
please, go.
It was 50 acres is really what they're looking for, right? These data centers are 50 acres in size or bigger.
Yeah, because the thing with Loudon, and the supervisor admitted it, they let that get out of control early on. And now they're trying to rein it in, and it's virtually impossible because, in the words of the supervisor, the data center companies have more money than God. And what they want, they get. And see, the data centers were a by right use in Loudon for what's commercial property. So they buy the property up, which jacks the price up 10 times. $200,000 an acre land was now $2 million an acre, and they couldn't stop them. Now they're trying to restrict that, and the horse has already left the barn. So we don't want to be in that situation either. Going back to looking at our zoning policy, we have to plan for possible, most contingencies, because we don't want somebody coming in here and plopping something that's going to not be good for us. But they're building them like 5 acres. They were building them on like 5 acres.
Yeah, but now they're looking at 50 acres.
All right. The only other two I've got, and I'm going to give you a hard time over this one. Airbnb enforcement is lax in the county. I wish Brian was still here, but I know he searches on a regular basis. I don't think that's an accurate statement. I think that they're pretty diligent in finding them. They found Judd. Yeah, doing bad things up there. But I do think they do a pretty good job, and I just find that not correct. The other one, though, that I kind of missed on this, and we originally, when we started talking about economic development, there was a big push on tech corridor. It seemed, and then you brought up the comments previously, Jim, about how Rockingham said everything's tech. Are we talking about redesignating the 29 corridor as a area of interest for economic development, or are we just going to let it stand with the mile out on both sides and being as part of the comp plan at this point?
Now, is that with respect to quote-unquote technology?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, what Rockingham County found, and this is in last year's technology zone study, Rockingham County originally set up technology zones similar to what's been done like in Culpeper and Nova. And what they found out is very quickly that it really wasn't working, and that the fact that all modern businesses employ some level of high technology. So they targeted their machinery and tools tax incentives to that type of machinery, and it doesn't matter what the business is. And the development director in Rockingham told me that one example recently was they had a sausage factory come into the Rockingham County, which he said you would think a sausage factory would be extremely low tech. It's all automated and high tech. So it took advantage of those machinery and tools tax incentives, which really apply anywhere in the county. It's not specifically for one area. Now, we could do that so that we don't have people building small nuclear reactors on Old Rag Mountain. That wouldn't go over too well with anybody.
Lights would be facing up towards the sky, obviously. No, that adds a lot of context to your M&T kind of tax reform. I appreciate that a bunch. Anybody else have anything on this? Look forward to the final report.
And I want to say I appreciate all the committee members. They've been fabulous. And, this is a challenge. It's going to take some work over a sustained period of time, but it's also really exciting. I mean, here's an opportunity, a once-in-a-generational opportunity to help right the ship on the county and get it going in the right direction.
I'm sorry, I'm going through my notes, I'm picking up more.
Keep asking.
You, on your last page, you have develop and adopt fiscal impact analysis and economic impact analysis framework for project proposals. Are you all gonna set some type of threshold for a level where that would kick in and not somebody that, I don't know, some mom and pop type of business to have to go through that whole process?
Well, that would be part of the policy. I'm going to turn and ask Mr. Smith, who's on our Economic Development Committee and is a member of the Planning Commission. This is primarily his initiative. So, Jim, do you want to kind of make any comments on that?
Thank you, Livingston. Hold on, no, he's got a pocket mic. There you go. Good job, Hannon.
What we would envision on that is understanding that fiscal analysis, fiscal impact, is the effect that any kind of development would have on the county and the county resources. So effect on schools, public safety, water, wastewater, sewer, those things. Yes. Be fairly easy to look at on an average cost basis from modeling that we did in the strategic planning initiative, as well as things that I've kept up to date on over the years. If we see that it is a hit to the county and it's going to force other county taxpayers, existing taxpayers, to pick up the freight on the proposed development, that's when we would want to see an economic development study, which is going to be more robust. Somebody else would do it. The physical impact analysis, we could probably do it in-house. I'm trying to work on something that would be very rudimentary, and the Planning Commission could run it. So,
Or-
you know, that's the thought on that.
Or you have the developer do all that work, right?
On the economic development, absolutely. And on fiscal impact, perhaps that as well. But the economic impact, certainly the developer, that's going to be a much more expensive kind of study.
There would be a threshold to kind of hit this. This would not be something that.
That's
I mean, the
something
majority of our
we
business-
certainly would, that we would certainly discuss that to see what the threshold should be.
Good, good.
Yeah, and certainly if you're having a bona fide real estate subdivision as currently envisioned, what's that, 18 houses now? That's going to require both, clearly.
No, the only reason I ask that is that, I mean, as we all know, the majority of businesses in Madison County are homegrown, most of them very small businesses as far as the way the world works. Putting onerous restrictions on them and making them spend additional funds just to get going, which we know is one of the hardest time to get business going, that's a pain in the neck, and I wouldn't be in favor of that. But on your larger stuff, I certainly, as we were doing, I understand with whatever this
PDRC.
that's a terrible name. Whatever that is, you're having them do currently with the development that potentially, or a business that would potentially come in. Go ahead.
That's right. That is to encourage it.
Yes, sir.
But the idea is to have the developer not be a free rider on the backbone of the rest of the county.
Very much.
Yeah, our current ordinances, I think, I shut my computer down, you already pull up, does address this. Maybe we need to, beef it up some, but I think
it needs a lot of work.
Section 6.
Appendix 1 under zoning, Article 16.
16, yeah.
What I'm hearing, a common response is, when should this be triggered? Article 16 talks about development impact, which lends itself to financial and, impacts of development on land, people, economy, public facilities, and services of the county. What it does not do is if you ask Jonathan, when does this kick in, or anyone, it doesn't clearly define. It does give the operative word is may. All developers may be required by the Planning Commission or Board of Supervisors to finance and assist in the preparation of an impact study, but it doesn't really give any examples. Now, my thought, and this is just my thought, if you're looking at residential development, that's certainly one of them. If it is a large industry, you want to have those impact studies, but there's nothing here that would guide to your question, not every business, but some business, well, what does that look like? So maybe just a friendly suggestion is look at Article 16 to see if you want to beef that up. I don't think that would maybe slow down any work or drafting of a ordinance or a modification or a different type of policy. But certainly you would want to include something in Article 16 that if there's a threshold, you all, as the policymakers, want to see, put that in there.
My bet is, Jim, you looked at
What I've done
Article
to date
16.
is, starting with Article 16,
Okay.
I've got a survey of all the neighboring jurisdictions, as well as some state-of-the-art, newer provisions that have been done across the country. And I'm doing that on both fiscal impact statement, economic impact analysis, and home-based ordinances. So we're looking at that to make it user-friendly and pro-development. One other acronym we didn't get in there, Clay, you might want to take note, is a DUDE,
All right, let's hear it.
D-U-D-E. It's a developer under the delusion of entitlement.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
That one's more specific and pointed. Much more constructive. Thank you. Anything else on this? Thank you. Look forward to the final report. Anybody else have any discussion? Information and correspondence. We've got plenty of meetings this week, as we do for the next, 2 or 3 months. Public comment. Public comment. Any public comment? No. How many people are watching us? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. What do you have, Jonathan?
Before you get to closed session, I do not want to take away from any public comment. Going back, I had a note here for the Economic Development Committee report. Supervisor Jewett, I think it was said, let's bring this back to the second March meeting for adoption. Did you want to talk about any of the maybe additional documents you would like to see at that meeting? Do we want to have that as a public hearing? And I asked that to the whole board, but certainly there are documents you referenced which are very good points that may include with that draft that you have put forth.
What I was suggesting is that we have ready for the equalization meeting, when we should have
Equalization, okay.
greater attendance, to have the comprehensive plan, economic development plan, technology corridor or technology zone plan, and also the Davenport audit on where this county is financially. Print those out so that folks that come, we can put them in their hands. We know they're on the site, but they never look at them. If they're interested enough to come and talk about tax rates, they should be interested enough so we can give them something and show them that we're not promising to do things, we are doing things. And that should answer a lot of questions for the general public.
You want to do your economic development plan, our committee report plan, as a public hearing, Jim?
I think it would be good.
All right, there you go. Let's do that. Add public hearing for this economic development plan. The one though that I do, and I got notes, I didn't say anything about it. The Davenport plan is good, and I see where you've identified, 19.8 million in potential capital needs over the next couple of years.
You'll have time.
I think it's super premature on that, on the basis that we've added, there's multiple things in there that have to be curtailed out, and are obvious curtailed out, and that it sort of biases the plan in a big way. And we're not talking $100,000 projects, we're talking multi-million-dollar projects. And putting that out there, I think it's just ahead of the game. People are more than welcome, we'll give it to anybody. I'm not advocating in any way. You want it, give it to you. I've got some, I think we need to go in there and hit it pretty hard.
And I agree with that. The report did have the multiple levels of capital spending needs. But one of the things that I like about that report overall is it really puts some of these things into perspective. What happens if the school system comes down the road 5 years and says, we need $20 million, which could happen.
It's 50 or 60 million,
Yeah.
but yes, that's correct.
So, okay, so I don't think it's unrealistic to say, look, we need to plan for things to be bad. And if they're not, wonderful.
All right, let's do it.
We got enough time? advertise for that?
And sorry, Hannah, put you on the spot.
Non-legally required
This is
public
not an ordinance. So I believe you're safe where you want to advertise 1 week, 2 weeks. So the question is, do we have enough time to advertise the public hearing for the economic development plan for the public to hear, and the board could officially adopt that night? I don't think you're bound by the normal advertisements as you would as an ordinance or a resolution per se.
So we've got, I think if we've got at least 7 days, we gotta do it once.
Yes.
Yeah, Kim's arguing with you, Jonathan.
So March 25th is your next board meeting. If we.
Yeah,
No, 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 no,
argue.
no, no,
Tell
no.
them where they're wrong.
She's
Come
paid to
on,
keep me
come
balanced.
on. You're
So
doing great.
do we, if we go, we can advertise in the online publication that's approved by the courts. He's saying 1 week, so we can certainly get that in 7 days before the 25th, or am I missing something? It's okay, you can tell me. Today's the 11th, so.
Ms. Turner, did we do this recently, talking about the advertising comprehensive plan piece?
There was some feedback you gave of normal advertised
What time
stuff.
did we ever, what was the last, what
I
was the
think-
last one we did? We did a public hearing on, what was that? On the speed cameras, in the school zones. How long did we advertise
Yeah,
for that?
Just 1 week.
1
That's
week.
the same thing.
It's, yes, it's, every now and then, there's one by statute, it's got its own little set of rules and makes it different, but yes, I think that's right.
Let's do it and hear what people have to say. It's a good idea. It's a good report.
count
Why not?
Count.
Everybody good? Yes, sir. Let's do it. Any other public comment? Are we doing good? Did you buck him? Good job. All right, we do have closed session. Thank you all.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that the board convene in a closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Sections 2.2-3711A1 for personnel.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.